Good morning. How the devil are you? How's your weekend been so far? Is it good? Are you happy with that point yesterday, or does it more feel like a defeat? Well, you know what day it is. It's Sunday. It's 10 a.m. So it's time for the famous Fox's Aftermath show, run by the fans, for the fans. And I tell you what, your opinion matters. So come on then, get them comments in. Come on, let's get going. Come on, you Foxes.
Welcome to Leicester Fan TV. Are you ready for the show? Thanks to our sponsors, ADT Taxis, Everards, Pukka Pies, Pink Car Leasing, Leicester Riders, Hollogram, The Fox's Arms, Peter's Pizzeria, Hope Against Cancer, and Newby Co estate agents. We want your views, we want your comments, so join us live. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. How are you doing? How's it feeling? Is it cold where you are? Because it's absolutely bitter here. The wind's blowing a right hoolie here. It's a little bit cold. My hands are cold, but we've got a chat. Another guest coming on. We've got he'll be on in a minute or two. We've got Callum from Footballjoe, born and bred Leicester fan. He loves to talk about Leicester. Let's just get a few mornings in. Morning, Aggie. How are you? Hope you had enjoyed the day yesterday. Morning, Nick. Good morning from Atlanta. Is that Atlanta, America, or Atlanta in Italy? Which one is it? Morning, Craig. You're early doors, 5 a.m. You've got up specially to come and see me. Morning, Craig. Much appreciated for that. David says, morning, Jamie. Must admit, feels slightly better after yesterday. David, I'm a bit unsure about yesterday. I think even with that last minute goal, 88th minute equaliser, I feel like a bit like a defeat, unfortunately. But let's see what Callum's got to say. So here's Callum from Footballjoe. Morning, Callum. How are you, pal?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Are you good? So how are you feeling? Are you feeling like it's a point gained or 2 points lost after yesterday?
2 points dropped, 100%. I think before the game, you'd have probably taken a point. But when you can see that late on, it's, it is very much a case of 2 points lost, especially in the situation we're in when we haven't won for so long and other teams are picking up points around us. That win would have done us a massive favour. But you just sort of come away feeling a bit deflated. I mean, Brighton are a very good team, don't get me wrong. But when you're 2-1 up with a couple of minutes to go, you expect to hold on, especially at home.
Yeah, you definitely do. Now, on Twitter, I got a bit lambasted last night for this main thing, the second goal. Who do you think was at fault for their equaliser?
I feel like there's multiple of things. It almost felt like it was coming, which is a regular occurrence now. It's more of a matter of when, not if, the opposition score. I felt we sat back a bit anyway, like building up for it a bit too much.
Do you think we were defending too deep? Yes. Sorry, Callum. Do you think we were defending too deep the whole game, or just towards the end? Because it seemed like Vardy was coming back an awful lot more than he used to do, and there was no outlet ball to Vardy. He seemed to be too deep.
Vardy's always got down deep anyway, to be fair. Like, he's always dropped back quite deep. And then, I felt like as soon as the second goal, as soon as we took the 2-1 lead, they dropped back quite deep. There seemed like no sort of like willingness to go for the third, which...
We never seem to go for the kill off, do we? I wanted yesterday from the very start to bust a gut from the very start and throw the kitchen sink at Brighton for the first 15, 20 minutes, like we used to do when we were playing free-flowing football from, I can't remember the year it was now, 2019-20, when we beat Newcastle 5-0, we beat Southampton 9-0. We were playing free-flowing football and we went for the jugular every time. But now, we just, especially yesterday, first 15 minutes, I don't think we hardly touched the ball in the first 15 minutes, Callum, did we?
No, I mean, at home as well, you expect to be the side that's on the front foot. I know Roger said that we started off well yesterday, which I beg to I have quite different views on that. I think we're very sloppy at the start. You could tell because within the first 5 minutes there was already sort of tension in the crowd, and you go to the game to get excited. You go to you want to get off your seat and you want to get something to cheer about, but yeah, there just seemed like a real lack of urgency at the start. I think part of it is definitely down to nerves as well. I think the players feel the pressure from the fans. There's obviously a lot of animosity at the minute, especially after last week's defeat. Yeah, you just want them to have a bit of a go, almost, like, even if you can see. I mean, the first goal was a good goal, but even still, it shouldn't have been allowed to come inside that easily. The finish itself is a great strike. Don't take it away. But it can be stopped from going in, because if you've watched him enough this season, the timer cuts in a lot and tries stuff like that. So yeah, it's basic fundamentals every time, and that's what's more than anything.
Well, that first goal, I think Castagna should have tried to show him more down the wing. It made it more difficult to cross instead of cutting in, bending it in with his right foot. But just on that second goal, I haven't got the video, I've just got a few pictures of it. I mean, the way we started was with Dakar, clear here, but he's got no outlet at all, has he? So old school me would have tried to launch it as far as I could, because it was the 88th minute. There was a quality stand where he could have played it away. He had more time here. He could have still played it away here, I think. When I was a kid, I know I'm a little bit older than you, Callum, but it was, if in doubt, kick it out. Get it into row Z would have been fantastic. It would have been able to regroup or even go for a throw. But then I don't know what he's doing it. Why do you think he passed it back? What is this tactics?
Down to lack of options up top. He is the striker, which frustrates me in some ways. He's striker, so he should be the most forward point of the team. Me.
See, go on.
Yeah, he's obviously looking, thinking there's nobody up there. I'm not running past 5 players on my own, which, ideally you want him further up the field. You want someone going from, because we all know he's got the pace, and those centre halves have been tiring towards the end of the game. He would have probably beaten them both for pace. Yeah, I think it's just that our strikers all seem to drop really deep, and that's obviously an instruction. That's not that's all they've been.
It's a bit like yesterday. Brighton's passing looked really crisp and fresh, and ours looked really slow and sloppy. And then it comes to after Dakar's fault. Yes, it wasn't just Dakar's fault. Then there was Tielemans' lacklustre challenge as well. You take the man in the ball there, surely, in that situation. And then exactly the same with the Marty here. And Marty, I don't know what it was, just like a pansy puff tackle. It just floated up. So we could have cleared it 3 times in them 30 seconds of effort there, really.
Yeah, there's some occasions where, sometimes you have to do what is the clever foul. And, sometimes it might mean there's a little bit of pressure, but it alleviates this sort of pressure. Yeah. You mentioned the pass in Brighton, crisp passing, and that's like De Zerbi's not even been there for, 6 months at this point, and they're playing like a side that has been managed by him for 3 or 4 years, whereas we look like the side that had a new manager, still figuring our way out, loose passes, lackluster passes, looking like they didn't know where to go at times. And that's quite damning, actually. That's quite concerning to see that when we've got a manager who's been in for, nearly 4 years now? Like,
I think it's 4 years next week, is it?
Longer than he's ever managed anywhere else before. Like that he's normally only been anywhere for no more than 3 years. So he's coming up to 4 years now in charge. That's quite damning when you look like you don't know what you're doing, and then the manager on the opposite side, who's been in charge for a few months, has got his side playing quite crisp and attractive football to watch.
Yeah. And then you get the same, just going back on the goal. I mean, this is the 4th attempt they've had to clear it. I'm not sure whether it's Brighton or Castagna. I can't tell because the photo's not the best. We had a chance to clear it then. And this, to me, this part is the most worrying thing. This is what I got absolutely lambasted on. The cross that came in, that's from the halfway line. This is from the edge of the penalty box. Look where Marty is, Callum. Yeah. That's not the right position, is it, for a centre-half to be?
No, he's too deep, and whoever's tracking the runner who scored.
That was Mendy.
Yeah, Mendy's obviously not tracked the runner, because, bear in mind, I was on the opposite side of the stand for that goal. I was in the cop end for that one. So, but even though looking at that image, it looks like Ferguson's just been allowed to run through pretty much unchallenged. Amarty's too deep. It seems like Faye and Amarty, when they first came in together, they looked like they developed a really good partnership before the World Cup, and it looks like they've come back and like they've never played ever again. Together, and seems like, I know Amarty's not a natural centre back, but he's played there enough, plays there for his country. Faye is, I don't know really what's happened after the World Cup. He looks a shadow of the player that he was before the World Cup. It's just problems everywhere. It's basic communication. Someone's got to tell Amarty he needs to step up and be in line. Someone's got to track the runner. Mendy's got to follow the runner. Because although he might not have beaten him in the air, he might have been there enough to put him off, to put it over the bar into Danny Ward's hands. Ward might have made a save. It's incredibly frustrating when you see that, because it's basic things, like you say, you could have cleared the ball away 4 times.
I've been saying that. Do the basics.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about doing fancy flicks and stuff like intricate passing. Sometimes you do just have to, if you're under pressure, you need a win, just get it away. Even if they come back and build again, that's still 5 extra seconds where you can all recompose, get back into your shape, and defend again. But it seems like that just isn't happening, which is really, really frustrating to watch.
It was like last week against Notts Forest. For some strange reason, Wilf decided to backheel it going forward, and it went straight to, I can't remember, the Scaramanga or whatever. I can't remember the bloke's name, whatever it was. And he had a chance. What was Wilf doing? He's not as skillful. Why was he trying backheeling it to the defenders? It's the mentality seems to be, I don't know whether it's your view as well, that it seems a lot sideways, backwards. There's no direct football anymore. And then when we do direct football, it's straight over the top, and there's no player to get onto the balls.
It's the same football that Claude Boyle was lambasted for. It was really, really heavily criticised for his style of football, and what we've been watching, certainly the last few months, hasn't been that far off towards the end of Boyle's tenure. But there is a lot of, understandably, there's a lot of people who still have the love for Rodgers. I think that's largely down to what he did in bringing an FA Cup, and you don't forget those things because we never won one before. But equally, you can't cling on to the past forever, and he needs to be judged on what he's doing now. And right now, if you're paid that much money to manage a club like this, you should be getting better results. It's like in the post-match conference yesterday, he sort of went at his players again. This time last year, he was very much defending his players. Now it seems like any opportunity he gets, and I get that. He's not necessarily been backed as much as he'd like to have been backed. But at the end of the day, like I said, if you're paid that much, these players aren't bad players. They're not bad players. They're good enough. But obviously, they're getting slammed in the press week in, week out, which is probably quite demoralising as a player to hear your manager essentially say, I don't want these players, they aren't good enough. But the reality is they are good enough. We do need more players. And good managers work with what they've got. They don't complain consistently. They get on with it. They obviously in the background want more, but they get on with it and they work with what they've got and they make the best out of what they've got. Feels like we're just not doing that at the minute.
Yeah, like Craig Hendry says, Mr. Six-Hitter, week after week, we keep discussing the same things, yet nothing ever changes or improves. Surely that's the whole essence of Rodgers' job. And on that point, I totally agree with what Craig's saying. But could you imagine Nigel Pearson blaming the players? Nigel Pearson used to take everything on his shoulders, and you very rarely used to hear him moaning in public anyway, might even be in private, but in public, very rarely moaning about a player. But Rodgers seems to lambast him or throw him under the bus, whatever you want to call it, week in, week out. He's the fourth highest paid manager in the third or fourth, I can't remember which one it is, third or fourth highest paid manager in that Premier League. If he's that good, surely he can get the best out of players. It's very similar, Callum, to Soyuncu. We're going about centre-halves. Why can't he get the best out of him? If he's had a bit of a bust-up, you play your better team. 18 months ago, Soyuncu was in that Premiership team. And I don't understand why Rodgers can't get the best out of players.
When he joined, the whole thing was he improved players, and he did. He did improve players like Harvey Barnes, and that weren't really foreign, was it? And then he turned out, he brought Maddison's game on no end. And it did, I think he's he's well aware that there's a lot of these players that thought that they were getting. I think a lot of these players thought they were leaving in the summer and didn't leave in the summer. But so that's partly a player thing as well. Either, it does. If you don't get the move you want, you buckle down and you work hard. And if you keep playing well, you might get that move later down the line. There's obviously a lot of players out of contract in the summer. Again, that's not really an excuse for me. If you know you're leaving at the end of the season, you play well to put yourself in the shop window. But also, the manager will know all of this, and behind the scenes, he can deal with it however he wants. But also, there's got to be a professional element to it. You can't bring sort of emotion into it. You've got to work with what you've got. And if for some reason he came out and explained why Soyuncu wasn't playing, we might all have a bit more understanding. But right now, it's quite obvious that the two centre-halves are not playing well. So we've got no Johnny Evans. Hypothetically, if he was back, he would probably be playing over Amati. So, again, like the injuries thing is, we're unlucky, but we're also not unlucky because it's a repetitive thing.
Don't start me on the injury situation because I'm blaming Seagrave for that. When they're all namby-pambied, 100 million holiday complex, hotel, whatever you want to call it. There's all these muscle injuries. Wilf yesterday, a muscle injury yet again. How can we've got a top quality training centre and we keep picking up muscle injuries week after week?
The medical staff that were there beforehand, which when they were, it's probably no coincidence that since they've left, injuries have started picking up. It's the whole club it's very strange at the minute. It's hard to say because I don't think I've seen it this toxic for a long time. Like, we obviously joked about being toxic, but there is genuine concern for the first time in a long time, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as to what the direction of the club is right now.
There is no direction, is there? Which way? Well, I know what you mean by direction, but the only direction I can see is down at the minute. I mean, 1 point off relegation, Callum. It's not the best of times to be a Leicester fan, is it, pal?
No, it feels like there's almost a reluctance from people inside, from the outside looking in. There seems like a reluctance to admit that we are genuinely in a relegation battle. And I get that, if people move on forward with time, other teams are still doing well, like the teams that are at the top, like Brighton, Fulham, Brentford, they all deserve to be there. They're playing really good football and they've recruited well. We've got a lot of players that have been around here for a long time. Like I say this, I love them to bits and thank them for everything, but Michael Brighton shouldn't be playing games for us in this day and age. It's brilliant. And he actually wasn't that bad yesterday. He scored, he played all right, but we shouldn't be relying on people like Michael Brighton to still turn up and put the effort in. We should, we should have looked at this a long time ago. There's players which obviously don't want to be here. They'll be gone in the summer, but I worry that come the summer, if we stay up, I do think we will stay up because I do think there are 3 worse teams than us, and I think we will.
But which 3? I've asked this last week, and people were saying Everton, Southampton, Bournemouth. I can't see them being Everton, maybe Southampton. I don't know. It's tough.
I think I agree with that. Southampton, Everton, Bournemouth. I think if you think we've got it toxic here, go to Goodison Park, and that's a whole other level. Their levels of toxicity are always quite impressive.
Out of them 3 teams I just mentioned, we've only beat one of them. Everton. That was the only team we would beat. Southampton beat us at home, and Brentford beat us away.
Yeah,
it's tough. I'm really struggling with this. I've been a Leicester fan. I'm 52 now. I've always been a Leicester fan. It's very much a roller coaster ride with Leicester, and I've seen relegation after relegation. But this one will hurt me more than even probably going down to League One. And I was really upset then.
It will hurt because this squad is good enough, and it's almost like there's now people are starting to go, well, maybe this squad isn't good enough. Like, right now on paper, there's not many teams that are better than us. But I do think if we do get some extra bodies through the door, it does give people a lift. Like, obviously Chris Jansen's different because he didn't actually play yesterday. But I know full well that when he plays, there will be a bit of a lift because the fans will be excited to see him play. If we get another player come in, another player 2-3 come in, you do get excited because it's new faces, and players thrive off that sort of energy as well. You know, like I can imagine as well, like we said earlier, there is no doubt that in my mind they are being affected by some of the comments in the press, because if you hear your manager constantly slating you publicly, there is going to be sort of an element of like, well, what have I got to actually do to impress him? I mean, they've not really warranted that much praise anyway in recent weeks, but
no, not recent weeks, have they?
No. But yeah.
Nick Moore's just said we need to bin off this stupid profession tippy-tappy football. Well, yesterday we had 36%, I think it was 37, I can't remember, and we scored 2 goals. The last few weeks we've been having 60, 70% and not scoring any goals. When we won I know when we won the league and that, I know it's going back and I don't like talking about history. We had less possession. I think we won it with something like 41% on average over our whole season. Admittedly, I don't want to see as like the game yesterday, week in, week out. But I do think the less possession we have, the better we are. This tippy-tappy football just doesn't work for us. I don't think, anyway.
It works in 2 ways. It's like the reason why we won the league with that counter-attacking style is because the players are built for that style. No offence to those players that won the league, but technically, we have a better crop of players, so naturally you should be able to play a better brand of football. Possession football works if you use it effectively. If you're just tapping it around the sides with no willingness to get it forward or show no signs of progression, of course you're going to let teams come onto you, and of course they'll poach the ball off at some point, because you get lethargic in doing that sort of thing, and one loose pass gets caught out. So I understand why people want to see this sort of like the counter-attacking thing come back, and it does work in some respects. We do have pace on the wings with people like Barnes and stuff, but equally we have a better crop of players, and technically wise, and they should be able to adapt to using possession football. You see how teams, it's a harsh comparison to do because Man City are obviously 10 times better than us, but their possession football is effective.
Yeah.
They use it and it builds up, and you always feel like something's going to happen. Whereas with us, you don't think something's always going to happen. So it can still work, but it's got to be used effectively. Right now, it's not, because there's no sign of it looks like there's no willingness to go forward and actually create opportunities.
So, like you just mentioned about Man City, I understand playing 11 men behind the ball against Man City or Arsenal or even Man U at times. But against Brighton at home, and we were negative from the start. I didn't want us to be that negative. Like I said earlier, I wanted us to bust a gut, throw the kitchen sink, go for the jug. But it just seems so... The first 10 minutes, I don't think we even touched the ball.
We played so negative. We played like the away team in the opening 10 minutes. Regardless of who you play at home, you should always be the side that are on the front foot, because you've got the majority of the support behind you. You want people to get off the seats and get excited, and it felt like we turned up as the away side almost for the first 10 minutes. But
I said that in our group chat.
Yeah,
we're looking like the away side, trying to catch him on the counter attack.
Brighton are a good team. Like let's not forget that. But also, like, we should be winning at home. You win your home games, and you pick up points. Like I know Nick just said, like, better players. They are better technically players, but obviously they don't have the same team harmony, chemistry. There's a difference between, like, I'm not saying they're not better players.
Yeah. I totally agree with Nick's comment there.
Yeah, they were tailor-made to that system, and they were perfect for that system. But this group, this back four, technically in terms of their, like, little things like hand control, they are on paper better players, but they're not playing better than those four did the year we won the league.
Yeah. A lot of people are talking about Harvey Barnes at the minute. Reedy's gone full out. Sorry, Barnes doesn't cut it. Awful game against yesterday, which, I think his confidence has shot it. Need to start taking chances. That's Tom. Sorry, where's it gone? There it is. Need to start taking chances. We make 2 versus Forest for Barnes, and yesterday when he should have put Vardy through. And Tom's on about this.
Yeah.
That ball should have been played then, I think, round the back for Vardy to run onto.
Yeah.
If that had been a full Barnes confidence, then yes, I think it would be. But he played the pass, and it was right behind him. And he had chances against Forest. I was going to say Spurs. He had chances against Forest last week. Exactly the same. Barnes is such a confidence player. I don't understand why. Is it because we haven't got the players to swap Barnes out and drop him and give him a rest? Or is Rodgers or is it Barnes becoming Rodgers' love child and he won't drop him?
I think it's a mix and match. I don't think there's another winger that plays in Barnes' position that would be good enough in the squad. I also don't think it helps when defensively behind him, his fullback hasn't been the most confident of late. Lou Thomas has struggled a bit of late. So naturally, as a winger, if you're knowing that your left back is struggling defensively, you're more inclined to help out defensively. Barnes is a very frustrating player in the sense of we all know how good he is, and it frustrates us when we don't see him take on people, because we know he can take on people. We know he causes people problems. On his day, he's one of our best players. I don't.
When you look at Barnes' form before the World Cup, what was it, 5 and 6 or 4 and 5? I can't remember the exact figure.
Yeah,
he was flying.
He was electric. I do think in some respects the World Cup has sort of hindered us a little bit, because like any side, if you get into a rhythm, you want to keep playing every week, so you don't play. But that's no excuse for the sudden downturn in form and how bad the down in form has been. I think Barnes has got a lot of pressure on in the sense that he's the only sort of out and out winger at the club. Like, Perez isn't a winger and he's been playing on the wing. Dennis Pratt isn't a winger. He started on the wing yesterday. So there is sort of a lot of pressure on him in the sense of you are the winger, you need to, you need to conjure up the magic. Especially when we've not been having Maddison, he is probably the one where you you need to take the game by the scruff of its neck. And he's sort of dealing with more defensive duties because his fullback is struggling and needs help out wide. He's getting pinned back, and people will target him because they know he's a good player. Opposition players will be told to target him and close him down. Don't give him space. Don't let him do what he does. Doesn't help himself all the time. Like people say, cuts inside a lot. Seems unwilling to take players on. And I think his issue has always been his composure. I mean, that chance at Forest away. If he buries that, probably go
different game.
If he lays the ball off the Vardy in the first half, we go 1-0 up, might go on and win the game. There's a lot of ifs and buts, but it's incredibly frustrating to watch at times because we all know how good he is. But I do think there's certain elements which have held him back a bit. But at the same time, there's almost sometimes he looks like he's just void of all confidence at all. He looks like he's not willing to take on players because he's not sure if he's going to beat them.
Just as you said that morning, Councillor, didn't realise Barnes was a winger. Wingers need to take on and be able to beat the defenders. Times yesterday and times against Newcastle and Forest, my missus keeps telling me to shut up while I'm watching the football. I keep saying, drive to the byline. He gets to the penalty box and he decides to cut in. If you're going to cut in, do something with it. Put it into a bit like, I can't remember my pronunciation, and whoever scored the first goal for Brighton, I can't remember his name.
It's over.
That's the one. Yeah. That's what he should be doing, cutting in and having a go. But Barnes, he cuts in, and a couple of times yesterday, he just played it straight to a Brighton player, whether defender or midfield. How much drive to the byline? A couple of years ago, he was doing that. But now, I don't know what the tactics are. It's telling him to cut himself. They're trying to find the perfect goal, walk it into the back of the net. A bit like Daka against Newcastle. When he had that chat, was it Newcastle? Yeah, Newcastle. He should have shot, but he didn't. He tried to pass it to Barnes in the 6-yard box. I know it's all about confidence, but I think it's the tactics that are installed. Pass at all costs. Have a pop, like Tillemans does. Have a pop.
It does seem like there's sort of this element that every goal that we want to score has to be this beautiful free flow in football. Sometimes we just want to see someone hit it. And you know, if someone hits it and it hits the post or it goes wide, I'm not bothered because they've had a shot. At least they've had a shot. Like you say, there were times. I think we only had 2 shots on target all game yesterday, and both of them were the goals. And that says a lot. The other chances were half chances at most. Even when I remember saying yesterday when Maddison was stepped over that free kick, he wasn't scoring it. He never was. And
I was like, please.
We all hope, and we know he's done it before, but you can't expect someone who's not played for a few weeks to bail you out of a free kick in the last minute. It's just not. And you shouldn't have to expect that. We had the Barnes chance in the first half. If you score that, you set the tone for the game. You have a lead. You push on. But once again, we fell behind. credit to them in some respects of taking the lead, but equally they just threw away all that work.
Yeah. Where's that question gone? Just one thing: penalty or not penalty? I know you were the other end of the you were the other end, weren't you?
I will say it looked like a penalty from where I was, the way he went down, but I haven't seen the replay of it. But it did from where I thought. As soon as he blew the whistle, I thought, oh, like here we go in the VAR.
Sounds like you're training to be a manager. I haven't seen the replay yet.
From where I was, it did look like a penalty. So
I think, yes, he did touch him, but there was minimal contact. From what I've seen, I saw it because I was watching in Spain and that, so I saw it on the TV. Yes, there was minimal contact. And I think Danny Welbeck made a huge meal of it. And when asked over it looked like he'd been shot from a sniper in the ground.
Probably more favours if he's doing that. If you actually...
I do think, yes, it was a penalty, but there was only the very minimal contact. If that had been the other end, if that had been Vardy, then I would have been praying for a penalty and I'd have been really disappointed. So I understand where the Brighton fans and managers are coming from. But I hate VAR, but at least VAR saved us yesterday.
A little bit. But again, shouldn't have to be relying on technology to save us from a potential defeat.
No.
It's one of these things where it's like, oh, that's great. But at the same time, thinking we should just do the job ourselves rather than rely on other things to go our way.
Yeah. Blimey, is that the time? Right. Last question. A bit of a two-parter here. Do you think we are going to go down, and is Rodgers the man for the job now? The situation we're in.
No, I don't think we're going to go down, but also no, I don't think Rodgers is the man to lead us forward.
I'm not sure how to. I didn't expect that kind of answer, to be honest.
I do think there's worse teams than us. It might not look like it now, but there are worse teams than us. And just this Leicester side is one of these weird Leicester sides where we will just go and do. Part of me just fully expects us to just out of nowhere go and like nick a point at Man United because it's just what Leicester do. They just do things where you look. It makes no sense at all, but it just happens and you move on with it. But I think it's perfectly acceptable to say that I don't think we'll go down, but I also don't think Rodgers is the man to lead us forward into the future.
Is this man? Oh, where is it? Sorry, wrong question. Dyche. Would you take Dyche?
I was very against it at first, but I feel like he's now getting to the point where he probably would do a half decent job with us. I think he'd be a good short-term fit, maybe not so much in the future, but he could prove me wrong if he ever came in. He could be brilliant for years to come. It's one of these things where I think it is okay to say you don't want the manager in, but you're also not really sure who you want to replace, because at the end of the day, you can throw names left, right, and centre about who you want. People will throw big names like Poch and Tuchel. They're not going to come. People will say people like Dyche. They might not come. So it's one of these things where it's like, I think it is perfectly acceptable to say you don't think someone's right to lead you forward, but not know who you want to replace, because it's such a wide pool to select from. It depends if they want to rip up the style of play. It depends if they want to literally just bring someone in to make sure they don't go down. If they want someone that's going to be a long-term project. I think if you go for long-term project, you're probably looking more at getting rid in the summer. But it's interesting. Yeah, I don't think we'll go down, but I also don't think Rodgers is the man for us.
Right. Callum, it's been much appreciated. Last question. Craig Dawson, would you have taken him? Yes or no?
Yeah, why not? Cheap deal, extra body, Premier League experience.
And
probably wouldn't have been a guaranteed starter, but would have done the job. Knows how to play.
I certainly think so. Callum, much appreciated. Cheers for joining us this morning, and enjoy your week's work at Footballjoe.
I shall do. Thank you very much for having me on. Enjoy.
You're welcome, pal. It's not so sunny at the minute. It's a bit cold and wet and windy. Not like when you were last here, pal, when it was nice and warm. All right, and Callum, cheers, pal. Thanks a lot, mate.
Pleasure.
Thanks for joining. Right, there we go. Callum Boyle from Joe Football. It's been much appreciated. Thanks for joining once again. It's been much appreciated. Getting up at these stupid, not stupid hours. Some people have got up at stupid o'clock in America and Mexico, but it's much appreciated. So it's, as you all know, it's ciao, ciao, adios, goodbye. Top of the morning to you. See you next week. Come on, you foxes.
Thanks for watching Leicester Fan TV. Thanks to our sponsors, ADT Taxis, Everards, Pukka Pies, Pink Car Leasing, Leicester Riders, Hollogram, The Fox's Arms, Peter's Pizzeria, Hope Against Cancer, and Newby Co estate agents. Make sure to follow us on all of our social channels at Leicester Fan TV. Visit our website, leicesterfantv.com.